This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. A very good morning to you all.
Thanks, sir.
I'm very much thankful to the management of Jayamukhi Institute of Technology and Principal Dr. Loknath Rao Garu and Head of the Department Gulam Sandani and other committee members for inviting me to share my views. Today I'm here to talk a little bit on structural health monitoring and non-destructive testing. What is the need of structural health monitoring? What is the definition of structural health monitoring? And what are the tests that are available? In non-destructive evaluation or for non-destructive evaluation? Once again, I thank the management of JMK Principal Dr. Loknath Rao Garu, Gulam Sandani, the participants for giving me this opportunity. Now, coming to the causes of engineering failures. What are the basic causes? A structure is there, it may be steel structure, or it may be whatever you say, it may be a RCC structure. What is the basic causes for structural failures or engineering failures? Primary causes of engineering failures are: first thing is deferred maintenance. Second one is design or execution flaws. Next one is material failures, overloading or unknown phenomena, and a combination of all the above. What is deferred maintenance? We construct a structure. With the age, the materials may deteriorate, but if you don't maintain the structure regularly, for example, we are going for the whitewashing. Otherwise, if there is any spalling, we will go for the plastering. If you ignore this type of maintenance, this leads to the failure of the structure. This is one factor. Second one, coming to the design and execution flaws, there may be something, the design may be wrong. That means generally what happens, we assume some loads. If your assumption is wrong, then definitely it leads to again a failure over a period of time. Next one is execution flaw, design or execution flaw. Your design is correct, but on site a supervisor will be there. Definitely, if he is not in a position to understand the design, or if he is not a position to understand the drawings, so naturally again this is a execution flaw. Third one is material failure. Now the best example I can give is we are constructing a building for our domestic purpose, double bedroom or G+1 or something like that. Now we order for a truck or a load of fine aggregate or coarse aggregate. Your footings will be over. Then you are coming for the plinth level. The material is exhausted and you are going for the next load of order. Now in such cases, what happens? In the design, we assume the material is homogeneous. But whatever the material we are getting, we are using or we have used for footing, the same type of aggregate we may not get. Cement, if you take the example of a cement, we will use 43, 53 grade, or some, you take the example of Ultratech cement, and we order 100 bags of Ultratech cement for footings. Okay, footings are over, and now coming to the plinth beam level. If you go to the same shop and if you ask for the same Ultratech cement, the shopkeeper or the owner may say, "Sir, this time Ultratech cement is not available. Can you wait for 15 days so that we will get the load?" But we don't wait, and we go for the other brand. So naturally, the material differences will be there. So these are very minor. The contribution is very much minor, but if the particularly coarse aggregate, the material is not good, again it leads to failure. Overloading, you design for particular loading, and if there is any overloading situation, so it leads to again the deflections or serviceability problems, and a combination of all the above. So not only one thing, if many combinations are there, like maintenance is not there, proper maintenance, again there is a something like design uh, fault is there, material problem is there, overloading is there, combination of all these things will lead to failure. So these are basically the primary causes. And the second one is some failures are sudden and catastrophic, and some failures just take their time. So we cannot attribute a reason for some types of failure. So this is the basic reasons for engineering, causes for engineering failures of structure. Now coming to the structural health monitoring. Now what is structural health monitoring means? Now a doctor is there, biological doctor, medical doctor is there, who monitors the patient's health and uses medical equipment to check overall health of the patient, prescribes corrective measures if required. Now this is the part of the biological doctor or the doctor generally we approach for our health. Now coming to the structural health monitoring, similarly the case is with the structures. So we need to monitor the health of the structures. What is the health of the structure? Is monitoring the condition of the structures, whether it is intact or not. Similarly, what the MBBS doctor or the specialized person doctor, how he monitors the patient's health, we have to monitor the health of the condition of the structure. Similarly, he uses medical equipment to check the overall health. Similarly, we use sensors, non-destructive evaluation test to check the overall structural health. If there is any excessive stress or deformation, we correct the situation by suggesting some remedial measures. Now, I hope that you understood the basic difference between structural health monitoring and our biological health monitoring. Same, the similar lines. Now, structural health monitoring, basically the categories are, first one is static field tests are there, dynamic field tests are there. These two are the first two things. Now, how we monitor? In the static field test, we monitor periodically. In the dynamic field test, we continuously monitor also. We also monitor continuously monitoring the health of the structure. Now, in the static field test, basically behavioral test, diagnostics test, and proof test. These are basically the tests we carry out in the case of static field analysis or static field testing. Now, coming to the dynamic field test, stress history tests are there, ambient vibration tests are there. I'll discuss one after one when in the coming slides. Dynamic load allowance test, pullback test, anchored cable test. That is, pullback test is anchored cable. We do for towers mostly. Periodic monitoring. In the static field test, we monitor very periodically. Field tests to determine the changes in the structure. And in the continuous monitoring mode, in the dynamic field test, we monitor. Active monitoring will be there. Passive monitoring will be there. Now, what is active monitoring and what is passive monitoring? That we will see in the coming slides. Now, need for continuous monitoring of the structure. Why we need to monitor the structure continuously? Now, analysis and in the analysis and design phases, when you are designing a particular structure, for example, take a bridge. Gulam Sandane, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, yes, sir.
So if there is any something goes wrong, please inform me immediately.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir.
If there is any audio difficulty or something visual difficulty is there, please inform me. Okay. Now, in the design phase, when you are going to design a bridge, when you are going to design a structure, and when you are analyzing, now I'm talking of continuous monitoring of a structure. What is the need for continuous monitoring? So while designing a structure or while analyzing a structure at the time of designing, there may be any imperfections in analysis and design. That means you might have mistakenly taken a wrong load or you might have done a wrong analysis. There we don't identify. Simply everything what we have done with our knowledge, we hope that is perfect. But sometimes it may go wrong. And the other thing is in the design phase or analysis phase, assumptions of ideal construction conditions will be there. For example, I have given a mixed design. The client comes to me and asks me for M30 grade of concrete. So generally, what we do as a civil engineer, so we collect the sample, and in the laboratory condition, we design perfectly, and we test and we propose some mixed proportion, and we check in the laboratory condition that If you use this proportion with this water cement ratio, definitely it will give a strength not less than 35 or 37, because he is asking for 30. So naturally, the target strength for that will be around 38 or 39, and we will get in the laboratory condition. So if the client goes out, and if he is using our mixed proportion in the site, there is no guarantee that the quality control will be there. So whatever the ideal conditions we are assuming, they may not be appropriately applicable in the site. So this is one more thing where your calculations and your calculations differs with the uh, assumed conditions. So construction phase. Now here also there will be some differences. Compromises in implementing the design. So this is supervision, or in the construction phase, the design you have given is perfect, but in the implementation, you might have given 22 rod. At that time, the diameter is not available. The mason or the supervisor who is available at the site, he tells that instead of using 22 rod, why don't you go for 16 rod or two rods? So naturally, these are compromises which we are compromising at the time of execution or design, the implementing design. Next one is poor quality of materials and workmanship. Oh, everything is perfect, design is perfect, and the supervision is perfect, but the material, the quality of the material which we are using may not be up to the mark. So that means the quality of the material which you are using may not be good. So naturally, nothing is in our hands. Sometimes what happens, we will just like in the starting I have given, we order for one truck or two trucks of lorry sand, and we use that. The quality is good, but when you are ordering for the second time, the quarry may not be available. That particular quarry from where he is bringing the sand or fine aggregate, that may not be available at that particular point, and he may turn to other site where the sand is available. The quality of sand in the second phase may not be equal to the sand which you have already obtained and which you have used. That means the material quality, what I want to convey you is the material quality differs from load to load. Oh, again, degradation. This is with the age. Deterioration of material with the time. That's what. So deterioration of material with the time is already there when you are crossing, just like our biological age. When you are the 20s, you will run fast. In the 30s, your physical stamina will be coming down. At 50s, definitely you will walk. In 60s or 70s. It is very difficult to walk. As the time passes on, the deterioration of the material will also decrease. Damages due to excessive loading or unforeseen impacts. So this is the deterioration phase. Environmental effects on material properties. Everything is good. The exposure condition
Chudu
with the
Brahma
increase in the,
Vishnu.
pollution, with the rapid urbanization. So naturally, the global warming phenomena, environmental issues are playing a vital role. This also will lead to failure of the material, and the estimation of this pollution, environmental pollution, global warming may not be appropriate during the time of design. For example, when you are designing a bridge for 50 years, your design is perfect, material is perfect, execution is perfect, everything is perfect. But after 20 or 30 years, you are not considering the environmental issues. So this is one more thing. The other natural calamities, that is earthquakes, storms, cyclones, floods, tsunamis, etc. This will have impact on the structures. So for all these purposes, we need to continuously monitor the health of the structures. So this is the basic reason why we go for continuous health monitoring of structures. Now chemical attacks are also there. Periodic visual inspection and localized entities will not help in detecting the suddenly manifesting changes in the structures. Now, periodically visual inspection, I think you know visual inspection. For example, if anybody asks you to estimate, sir, we want to go for the repair. So simply by sitting in your house, you cannot give the suggestion that okay, sir, you just chip off and go for the plastering. That is not the solution. You need to have the visual inspection. So periodic visual inspections, localized entities. For example, we have rebound hammer and we will test the strength of the column. That is only local test. So this column is good. Okay. Now what about the other column? So everything you are testing. Okay. So what about the beam? So this is randomly we are testing. So localized entity test will not help in detecting the suddenly manifesting changes in the structure. Now the tests, just like your ultrasonic pulse velocity or NDT tests, these are not sufficient. Sometimes we need to continuously monitor and we need to suggest the different tests depending upon the situation. The technique requires expertise in analysis and assessment of structural integrity. Now, the expertise of civil engineer is very much important in the analysis of the structure, in analysis of the structural health monitoring and assessment of the structural integrity. So being localized techniques, they cannot give global evaluation of the structure. So I think you can understand this. Now the second one is real-time online automated health monitoring. This is one thing. Now real-time, what is real-time online automated health monitoring? Now here what is real-time implies that monitoring is continuous even during the service period. Okay, how we do this we will see in the next coming slides. We will induce sensors, we will collect the data during the service life of the structure. When a load is moving on that particular bridge or particular structure, how much is the deflection, how the deflections are varying in various spans. This is known as real-time online automated health monitoring. Now we will see the coming slides. Now why this health monitoring system is required? Now, there are different things. One is from structural point of view. Second one is constructor point of view, that is contractor, whatever the thing you can say, or the owner. Next one is maintenance service point of view. These are improving safety, reducing accidents and losses. These are some of the things why we need this motivation for structural health monitoring. In the olden days, people they ignore that. Simply when the structure is showing any cracks or any undulations like the deflections, spalling, people used to live with that. People used to call the mason and they used to chip up the thing and they used to go for the new motor, I mean repair with the new motor. But as the technology is developing, so high-rise structures, skyscrapers are there. People are paying money for apartments, so they want all these things. So motivation or whatever you call the knowledge regarding this awareness regarding the structural health monitoring has been increased overall the globe with the adoption of the new technologies. We are going for that. So from structural point of view, it predicts optimal use of structure. So this is the safety from structure point of view, minimizes downtime of the structure, avoids catastrophic failure. If you monitor continuously the structural health, definitely these are the advantages from structure point of view. Catastrophic failures can be avoided. Predicts optimal use of structure. Okay, if you use, if the load is this much, definitely this is the deflection. So this much is the load that can be maximized. This is one thing. Now, constructor or owner point of view, it gives the constructor a scope for the improvement in his product. So it gives a real idea. So if you do like this will be the outcome. What are the things? I mean, what are the things that contractor or owner can take before going for the things or structural health monitoring? If we monitor the improvement and for the next product, a builder can construct this building or apartment. After this is completed, he will move to the another venture. When he is monitoring, if he motivates or if he monitors continuously the structural health, definitely he can implement this in his new venture. Gives him a chance for repair before embracing collapse. This is also one more thing. Before the catastrophic failure, he can go for the repairs. Similarly, maintenance services point of view, drastically maintenance will be decreased. Cost will be decreased if you regularly monitor the health. Safety will be improved. to overcome the failures due to unsatisfactory maintenance. If maintenance is not good, definitely it gives warning. So when you are monitoring the structural health, the safety, the particular structure will increase, reducing accidents and losses, economic saving primarily for the persons who are residing in that. So economic validity will be there. These are the reasons why we motivate, why we go for structural health monitoring. Now, what are the objectives? Okay, we are going for structural health monitoring. What are the objectives of structural health monitoring? Determination of damage existence, where the damage is there. Okay, it may be internal damage. We will be using different mechanisms to identify the damage. Every damage we cannot have a physical look. So internal damages will be there. Internal micro cracks will be there. We can identify. This is determination of damage existence. Coming next one is damage determination of damage geometrical location. Where is the damage located? Now, if that particular deflection is at the center of the span, naturally the bending moments will be there and more deflections will be there. Geometric location of the damage is important. In underwater repairs, this is extremely important. In underwater repairs, similarly coming to the quantification of damage severity. Okay, first one is damage, whether the damage is there or not. If the damage is there, where it is located. Next, coming to the quantification, how much severe the damage is. Next one is prediction of remaining life of the structure. These are the objectives of structural health monitoring. Now, if this is the damage, if you go for, we can predict the remedial measures. Like if you go for the repair, structure can be saved for next 20 years or 30 years, 10 years, depending upon the repairs and depending upon the situation, depending upon the severity of the damage, we can predict the remaining life of the structure. Now coming to this slide, now what are the structural health monitoring required systems? You can have a look here. We will. Adani, my cursor is moving now. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes,
My
sir.
cursor is moving now. Screen
Yes,
is
yes.
visible.
Cursor is moving, sir.
Okay. For example, if you take the bridge or any structure, bridges, here the example is bridge. Here we have attached some sensors, and the data will be, while any load is moving over that, the data will be collected in the data acquisition system. This is on site, and it will be transmitted to the processing unit. Here the data will be processed, the electronic signals will be converted, and here the data storage systems will be there. The observed data will be analyzed, data retrieval, and whatever the signals or whatever the data we get, this will be analyzed with your technical knowledge, and here a diagnosis is taking place. So if this is the signal is weak. If this is the thing, if this is the stress concentration, we will analyze and we will suggest the remedial measures. This is structural health monitoring using this. Now, passive and active structural health monitoring techniques. Now, what is passive? What is active? In the components which are required are actuator is required, sensor is required. These are. An actuator typically is a mechanical device that takes energy, usually energy that is created by air, electricity, or liquid. That means we use hydraulic energy also sometimes, and converts into some kind of motion. Actuator is used to generate the force or induce displacement or vibrations. Now, there are two things. One is active monitoring, the other one is passive monitoring. In the active monitoring, that is known as ambient vibration tests we do, and I'll talk with the slides so that you can understand very easily. With the passive monitoring, what we will do is we will attach the sensor and simply we collect the data. So when the service loads are moving, it gives the data and the data will be collected, and we will and we will analyze the data. This is passive. In the active monitoring, we will activate with the help of actuator. Now, to your required degree, for example, a building is there. Up to what degree you want to vibrate it? With what frequency you want to vibrate it? So generally, we will do that is we activate the structure and we will collect the data to your will. That is known as active health monitoring. Passive means simply under the loads, we will attach some sensors and we will observe the data, we will collect the data. Now here you can have the example. A sensor will be embedded into the structure. Now action is here, that is through activator. Through activator, you are activating the structure. This is the structure to be monitored. And this is embedded actuator. And you are activating the structure to your required degree, and a sensor will be there. That sensor will collect the data and it will send back to the data acquisition system. This is active structural health monitoring. Now this is passive structural health monitoring. Now here the sensor will be there. You are not actuating. You can see, you can have a difference between these two slides. You are not activating by external force. That means whatever the load that is coming, the data will be collected by the embedded sensor, and the data will be collected by you, and it will process the data, and the data will be processed in the data acquisition system, and you will analyze the acquired data, whether there is any damage, whether the deflections are well within the limits or not. This is known as passive health monitoring. Now again, coming to what is structural health monitoring, you might have understand the basic principles. Now the definition goes like this. The process of implementing a distress or damage detection strategy. The process of implementing a distress or damage detection strategy for engineering structures is referred as structural health monitoring. This is known as structural health monitoring. The process of implementing a distress or damage detection. I want to detect the damage. The structure is not performing. I want to detect why it is not performing well. Where is the damage? What is the basic problem? This is known as structural health monitoring. Coming, it is not a new concept. It is not a new concept. It has been around several decades. It is not a new technique. It has been around for several decades. Advance in electronics made it easier to implement. For example, if you go to the market and you want to buy a pot for drinking water, how we will test? So generally we will keep the pot to the sun, so that if there is any hole, definitely we can have a look in that. Otherwise we will beat with your finger holding, so that it gives a sound. If it is metallic sound, we will estimate the quantity, how it is. Sorry, we will estimate the quality of that particular part. This is a non-destructive testing. And for example, if you are going for a market to bring mangoes, simply we smell it, whether it is good or bad, whether it is rotten or whether it is ripened. So this is structural health monitoring. Same we are implementing to the structures. Now with the advances in the electronics, the structural health monitoring has taken a different phase. That means rapidly increasing. We are in a position to identify the distress with the help of this NDT, non-destructive evaluation tools. Now, what is monitored, how and why? Now, here you can have a look. These are load cells. Okay, if I want to monitor the deflections, I need to apply the load onto the structure, and I need to catch the deflections, or I need to catch the strains. Strain gauges will also be used in this. For example, in the figure, these are the load cells. When you are using load cell, the magnitude and configuration of forces applied onto the structure with what load. Load cells are of different capacities. 50 kilo, 100 kilonewtons, that is 10 tons load cell is there, 20 tons, 1000 tons, 200 tons, like this. We have different ranges. And then the load cell, through the load cell, we used to apply the load force will be applied on it. And in the bridge, you can have a look in the figure. The suspension cables are there. The tension members we are attaching. These are the strain measuring equipment, strain gauges. And here a load will be a truck, load will be moving over that. Definitely the strains in the cables will be recorded. And are they as expected, that we will be measuring. Now, if the strains or stresses are well within the limit, definitely I can say this is good, the structure is going to be good. And if the strains or stresses are exceeding their limits, we need to suggest some remedial measures measured using load cells or inferred using strain data. So these are the when you applying the load, how much is the stress and strains in various cables. In the case of a suspension bridge or suspender, or you can have similarly you can also measure the stress concentrations at the various columns in the foundation. Also, you can do this. This is load cell. Now coming to the strain measurements. Now these are the strain measuring equipment. You can have a look here. These are dial gauges. I think most of the structural materials labs we use to measure the strains or deflections or simply supported beam tests in the second year of your BE civil or BTech civil. This type of strain is mechanical gauges. These are, we might have seen this. I'll discuss with the case study also in the last part of my lecture. I'll discuss with this. And these are some other types of strain gauges. These are some other strain gauges, directly the advanced models. This is mechanical gauge, directly these are digital gauges. Here optical displacement sensors are also there. These are sensors which use piezoelectric material for the manufacturing of these sensors. This is one more strain gauge which uses the signal process using a spring or coil or some sensors. So whatever you call that is the electronics chips will be there. Electronic chips will be there. So deformation or unexpected deformation may result in a need for rehabilitation or upgrade. If there is any excessive or unexpected deformation in the structure, that is from deflection point of view. As you are all, you know well from the RCC designs, the limitations of the deflections will be there. L by 250, span by 250, span by 350. And we also calculate the deflections in the cantilevers, WL cube by 3EI, the deflection at the end. Like this, we have in the designs, the limitations as per IS 456, we have limitations on deflections depending upon the material. That is, if it is RCC, it will have span by 350. If it is steel, we have span by 250. Like this, we have limitations on deflections. Now, if the deflections are excessive, definitely we need to rehabilitate the structure, or we need to upgrade the structure. So deflection should be well within the limits. Now, are they expected? If the deflections are excessive, are they expected? That means, is there any overloading? No, if that overload is removed, definitely it has to regain. It has to, the deflection should be controlled. These are some of the things we know from the design point of view. To measure those, we are using this type of strain measuring equipment. Now, these are one more strain gauges, different types of strain gauges. Now, here you can have a look. Generally, we call it as rosettes, triangular rosette, rectangular rosettes. Circular rosettes are also there. Strain measuring measurements. Demuth points. Sometimes here we use Demuth points also. Very small, minor points we attach to the beam. Suppose the people who are in the research, they know that how to measure the deflection of the beam using Demuth points. Strain measuring. These are some strain measuring gauges we can call strain gauges. rosets. So intensity of deformation, magnitude and variation of strains can be examined to evaluate safety and integrity. So at the different locations, we embed these strain gauges. So piezoelectric material optic sensors will be there, and this will transfer the data to your data acquisition systems. So fiber optic sensors, electrical vibrating wires. So these are some of the things uh, which are used for the manufacturing of the strain gauges. So we use these strain gauges to measure the strains. Now temperature measurements, generally we measure, thermometers will be generally there. Change in the temperature causes the deformations. We know temperature stresses also. Infrared thermometers are also there for biological health. When you go to doctor for fever, he will insert a thermometer which consists of some mercury which indicates your body temperature. Similarly, nowadays under this COVID situation, when you are going to malls, they are using that this infrared guns. So they also measure the temperature. Changes in temperature causes deformations, thermal expansions. Repeated cycles can cause damage. If the temperature is continuously changing, so the temperature variations will also lead to damage of the structure. That is known as thermal variation. Generally, we call. We will measure the temperature variations. For example, if your AC is not working, the mechanic comes and he measures the temperature. So whether it is giving the required temperature or not. These are some of the measured during thermocouples. These are some of the equipment measure. And acceleration, actuators, I told you in the beginning, the active monitoring, we actuate the structure to your desired degree. These are some of the equipments which measures the accelerations. Load causes acceleration of structural components or vice versa. These are known as accelerometers. How the structure is resisting accelerations and resulting loads. Widespread use in highly seismic regions. When there is a seismic load, definitely acceleration will be there. Ground motion due to ground motion, and not only due to that, when there is any in a particularly if you take any industry where the machines are there, vibrations will be there. In that case also, how the structural components are accelerating. These are accelerometers. This will be these will be attached, and this will catch the motion or vibration, and it will be transferred to these sensors. These are the sensors. These will be attached, and here these are some of the vibrometers. It catches the vibration. So accelerometers are vibrometers, and mostly these will be used to measure the vibrations of viaducts. Basically, in the industries or any, particularly in any heavy industries, we use this. Now, how we measure the wind speed? Anemometers we will use. This is an anemometer. Now, for example, wind also causes variations in the structure. So the wind speed is more and more. Generally, we design for the wind speed. The moments will be changing in the columns. Means we design for that wind speed. The wind speed also we consider in design. These are anemometers, wind speed and pressure. Wind loads can govern the design of the long span bridges and tall buildings. In the case of bridges, this wind load is very much important. Or in case of design of very high-rise buildings, we take the wind speed that we know. Even in STAD, when you are doing, some people are very much familiar with the STAD. It uses the wind speed for high-rise buildings. When you are designing the wind speed, how to measure the wind speed, whether the speed which you are taking is correct or not. We use this anemometers. Nowadays, the anemometers here in the second picture, Shaka is a tiny wind meter. Not with iPhone, just your mobile. Simply, if you attach this, it will directly give you the wind speed at that particular point. You can have a visual record speed and pressure at various locations. Anemometers will be generally used to measure the wind speeds. Oh, coming to the acoustic emissions, so we have acoustic emissions measuring devices are also there. When certain structural elements break, they emit noise. These are very much important for auditoriums or cinema theaters or sports indoor stadiums. How the noise is releasing, how much noise is producing. If it crosses the limits, definitely there will be damage in the structure, maybe minor or major. Acoustic emitters listens for the noises and pinpoints the location where the noise is coming from. So this is acoustic emission identifier. This is video monitoring will also be there. It directly can be attached to the video monitoring. The signals will be like this. The sensor will be attached to the structure, and as the acoustic emission is released, it catches the signal and it transmits, it amplifies, and directly you can have a analysis in the data acquisition system, and it can be clearly monitored on your screen. So by that you can say that at this point the noise is more, so that we have to control. This is particularly for army purposes. We use this acoustic systems and audio. This what I want to say is auditoriums and indoor stadiums where the sound should be controlled. Structural health monitoring, it provides the civil engineering community with a suite of options for monitoring, analysis, understanding the health of our infrastructure system. Basically, it provides an option for monitoring and analyzing, understanding the health of our structures, provides essential tools to engineers who must take steps to improve the sustainability of infrastructural system. Sustainability is the term it is coining nowadays. It is very important when you are designing a structure and you say that the structure will last for 50 years, but if there is any deferred maintenance or pollution, as I said, due to environmental changes, it may be subjected to some deterioration. To identify the reasons, we have these structural health monitoring systems, and it provides civil engineering community. Different options are there, different health monitoring tests are there. To understand the structural behavior, these will be very much helpful to improve the sustainability, to improve the health of the structure, to improve the longevity of the structure. Oh, this is a graph. Okay. If you are maintaining the structure regularly with the help of structural monitoring, the life of the structure will be improved without any major maintenance, without any major modifications. But if you don't monitor regularly, normal monitoring will lead to the cost will be more, repair cost will be more. You can have sometimes if you ignore this structural health monitoring and even normal thing, catastrophic failure will be there. This is a graph, time in years, and restorational or repair cost. So if you monitor from the beginning after years, that means maybe after 5 to 10 years we require this. If you regularly monitor with the help of structural health monitoring, that means we don't have ultrasonic, some other things, whatever you wish. So the maintenance cost will be decreased and your time, the life will also be increased. So these are some cutoff points. Normal deterioration will be taking place. So similarly, the repair cost also will be increased. This is the graph deferred maintenance and structural health. If you are not maintaining, definitely this will be the thing. So non-destructive testing. The need to evaluate the existing structure arises from why we require non-destructive testing. This is our basic thing. The need to evaluate the existing structure. The need to evaluate, why we need to evaluate the existing structure. Already structure is there. What is the need to evaluate its strength? What is the need to evaluate its performance? This arises because of the following reasons. Prior to rehabilitation, for example, you have a two-story building and you want to go for the third story. You do not know the foundation condition because the property has been transferred by your father or by your grandfather. Then you will get the doubt whether the foundation is strong or not. I want to go over one more floor. So second thing is change in the occupancy. Okay, a building has been purchased by you and you do not know any, you do not have any drawings, and you do not know what are the steels that has, what is the amount of steel that is provided in the columns. You do not know anything, but the building is good and you have purchased it, and you want to modify it. You want to go for one more floor. So this is one more condition. You want to evaluate the structure, whether it can withstand or not. Sustainability compared to new construction. A new already constructed building is there, and you want to compare you want to compare your own building, how much time I can have this building further without any damage, that you want to compare. In such cases also, this non-destructive testing will help. So new building will definitely sustain for 50 years, but your old building is there 10 years or 20 years building, whether it can still stand for 30 more years or not, that we cannot say, because whatever the ground condition that they have constructed during that period, and we do not know what are the loads that they have taken. These are some of the issues which plays a vital role. So the need to evaluate the existing structure arises from this following. So drawings are commonly not available. Whatever the designs we have done, drawings, reinforcement details, you have constructed, you have purchased a old building, you do not know any details. The building is there, is good. Physically it is good. What is happening inside that we do not know. For example, if I ask you a question, how are you? What will be your answer? Anyone, please. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. I'm fine.
But if you say you are fine, sir, I am suffering only with the BP, then you are not fine. That means we are dragging our life. That means if you are saying fine means from strength point of view, durability point of view, performance point of view, everything should be same. Then only you can say you are fine. For example, if I ask you the same question, how are you? Then you say that, sir, I am very much fine, but I cannot run. Then you are not fine. Performance is different. So similarly, drawings are not available, lost over the time, changes in ownership. That means a person who constructed because of his own problems, he might have sold out to you. Building is good, everything is good, and you want to go for the one more story or two more stories, or you want to remove a particular wall so that you can make a big hall. So whether it can withstand or not, for all these purposes, we need to evaluate the structure. The tests available for assessment of concrete are non-destructive tests, partially non-destructive or destructive. These are categories of tests, I can say. Basically, one is destructive, what we do in the labs. That means we crush the cubes. The cube will not be used for further things. That is known as destructive test. Second one is partially non-destructive. Those are which concrete surface slightly damaged, such as core test. We will take the core cutter and we will remove a core, and partially it will be disturbed, and we will fill with guiding or short grading, and we will test the core. And non-destructive, where there is no damage to the concrete structure. For example, we won't have a test ultrasonic, that we will discuss. Okay. So the concrete tests are divided into three categories. One is destructive, second one is partially destructive or partially non-destructive also, you can say. The other one is non-destructive. So these are three kinds of tests that are available for concrete. Now NDT, what are the advantages of NDT or usefulness of NDT? Assessing the quality control of concrete without breaking them, removing any uncertainties. If there is any doubt, I need not demolish the entire structure. So removing any uncertainties about the acceptability of the material supplied using this NDT. That means a structure is there, no need to damage it, no need to go for the destruction. With a certain percentage of acceptability, we can remove our uncertainties. Confirming to negating doubt, confirming or negating the doubt, that means we can remove our doubts. Okay, this is performing well or not. No need to remove it, no need to crush it. So this is the advantage of NDT. Monitoring the strength development in relation to the formwork removal. This is during construction stage only. We will discuss this in the coming slide. Advantages of non-destructive tests are better investigations with the NDT, rapid accumulation of data, generally less expensive than destructive testing. When you are going for the destructive testing, definitely the structure it cannot be again used. Minimize interruption of building services. When you are doing testing, no need to interrupt any other services. Simply you can test here, the other routine service things will be going on. Evaluation and quality assurance will be good. But these are the advantages. Now again we have some disadvantages. More than one test method may be required. We cannot come to the conclusion with one test. For example, if you go to a biological doctor, he asks you for blood test. Okay, blood test is fine, still you are suffering, then he will ask you for some more tests like X-ray. If that is also good, then he will ask for one more thing, 2D echo, something like that. Urine test, blood test, different tests are required. Similarly, the same is the case with NDT. For example, I asked you to go for rebound hammer test. Okay, it is giving good. Still, why it is leaking? Then I asked you to go for ultrasonic pulse velocity. Then I asked you to go for vibration analysis. Like this, now we cannot conclude. We cannot come to the conclusion with one test. Different tests are required. Now, more than one test are required in this case. Environmental and field conditions may affect. This is one more thing. When you are going for the sensitive test like acoustic emission test, the field conditions may affect the test results. Construction details and building components may affect the results. This is one more thing. Already I told you, you have purchased a old building of 20 years. The building is good, you are living in that and you want to go for the extension. So construction details are not available. Naturally, we cannot come to the conclusion with some tests. So we need to analyze furthermore. So these details are required. The details and building components may affect the results. So sometimes some conditions cannot be determined with reasonable degree of accuracy. This is one more thing. That's why mostly we rely on destructive tests, but destructive tests cannot be always possible when the structure has been constructed. So the degree of accuracy is 80 to 90%, not 100%. What are the different NDT methods that are available? First one is visual inspection. I'll discuss here a little bit, 1 or 2 minutes. Already the starting, I mean, I discussed, for example, if any clients calls you over phone and he asks you, sir, my building is leaking, slab is leaking. You cannot give the conclusion or you cannot give your solution like, sir, okay, go for plastering. Definitely that is not the correct solution. We need to go for visual inspection. You need to attend the site, you need to visit the site, you need to look into the site. That is known as visual inspection. You need to inspect the building physically. Is it the basic reason for the leaking, or are there any cracks, or is there any deterioration in the material? At how many places the deterioration is there that we need to check. That is known as visual inspection. Similarly, we can have that is also known as rapid visual screening. We will screen the building. Then we have structural audit that is there that comes under regular maintenance. Half cell electrical potential measurement. This we use for measuring the corrosion of steel. Humida rebound hammer test, you know. Carbonation depth measurement. This is also the test. Sometimes nowadays we are using carbonation depth measurement using phenolphthalein indicator test for concrete. And the permeability test is also there. How the concrete is permeable. Penetration or wind probe test is there. Wind probe test is, that means to measure the compressive strength of the concrete. I will show the diagram. Cover meter test is there. Login cover meter we have. Most of the colleges will have login cover meter to measure the cover depth. So radiographic tests are there, just like thermal photographic test. We have radiographic test, ultrasonic pulse velocity, sonic methods are also there. Generally, we don't use this. Navigation, they use these sonic methods, and aeroplanes, I mean, Air Force people, they also do this. Particularly the sonic test they use for navigation, mainly the Navy. Impact echo testing is there. Impact echo is nothing but acoustic emission tests only. Ground penetration radar. This is one more ground penetration radar. This test is used to identify the depth of foundation or details of foundation. Infrared thermography test. These are some of the NDT methods which we generally use. Okay. Gulam Sandani? Hello, Gulam Sandani?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir. It's okay, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Oh, visual inspection, already I told you, which is an essential precursor to any indented non-destructive test to establish the possibility causes of damage to a concrete structure and hence identify which of the various NDT methods are available. Already I told you, we need to visit the site, we need to estimate the condition, we need to decide what test is required for this. So what test is required for this? We need to decide after going to the site only. Without visual inspection, we cannot decide. So this is rebound hammer. You might have seen most of the colleges. This measures the compressive strength of the concrete. Utilizes an internal spring and rod to strike the concrete with calibrated force. Easy to use. Here it works on the principle of this potential energy that is stored in the spring, and a calibrated graph is generally will be provided on the rebound hammer. And here my cursor is moving. Here you will get the rebound number. So with the number you need to check and how you are giving a stroke to the floor. Is it 90 degrees inclined one? There are three curves which directly gives the compressive strength of the concrete. This is a calibrated specimen. Here you have to test, then you need to do that. Sometimes this will also be used to roughen the surface. This is a rebound hammer. The body inside, the spring will be there. You are pressing. So here, this is the indentation. It works on the hardness of the surface principle, surface hardness. The variation you need to take 13311 is a code for non-destructive evaluation. According to that code, you have to test. This is the graph. I don't want to discuss much on this because you are very familiar with this. This is ultrasonic pulse velocity, and the test is for estimation of concrete integrity. Directly, it will not give any compressive strength. Try to keep that thing in mind. It correlates to compressive strength. They don't use any compressive strength. It is a qualitative test, not the quantitative. Test basically depends on the measure to how measure travel time of ultrasonic pulse. Here two sensors are there, and the distance will be there. And this is the ultrasonic pulse velocity measuring device. It gives the time of travel. You know the distance. Distance is equal to velocity into time. Time it gives. Distance, you know, you can calculate the velocity. That will be in microseconds. And the time of velocity gives you the quality of concrete. It cannot give directly the compressive strength. You need to keep that thing in mind. Here, a transmitter will be there. There is two sensors here. What this slide here is one is a transmitter, the other one is receiver. Same thing. Time displayer, pulsar transmits. So receiver will receive the signal. So like this time display, you can directly measure the velocity of the sonic wave. Okay. This is as per 13311. Just now I mentioned the code 13311 part 1. This code will directly give you the rebound hammer and this one also. If your pulse velocity speed is greater than 4.5 kilometers per second, then it is good, excellent. We can say the concrete is excellent. We cannot say the compressive strength is something. We cannot correlate like that directly. So if the ultrasonic pulse speed is less than 2 kilometers per second, then the quality is poor and we need to have a doubt. Okay, this is not good or very poor, something less than this, it is very poor. I have doubt, you need to remove and you have to strengthen this part. That we can say. Now half cell potentiometer. This is to measure the corrosion. Now here, where there are cracks, simply they install that, and this is the reference electrode will be installed. Copper sulfate solution will be there. The mechanism here I am showing. The half cell testing method is used to determine if the reinforcing steel is under active corrosion or not. A voltmeter will be there, and they will measure the potential drop or potential difference between the two electrodes. That gives the idea of corrosion in the steel. Okay, so this is a typical half cell contour plots. Here directly we will have the contouring. So the potential difference is 0 to minus 200, greater than 90% probability of no corrosion. But if the values are in the positive range, then you have a look. The positive value, the moisture content of the concrete is insufficient, and therefore test is not valid. And if it is less than minus 350, greater than 90% of probability of that corrosion is occurring. So it gives the potential difference basically 0 to minus 200, less than minus 300. So these are the limitations, minus 200 to minus 350. So corrosion may be there or may not be there, uncertain. So if it gives positive value, moisture content of concrete is insufficient and therefore test is not valid. So here it directly gives the ranges. If it is green, we can assume that there is no corrosion. If it is red, the corrosion will be more like that also. We have, now this is acoustic emission test. Sound waves will be produced directly, acoustic sensor and sensors will be attached to that, and force will be applied on the structure. Because of force, definitely there will be a deflection or some sound will be generated. That means creaking sound will be there. The material undergoes stress due to internal changes when you are applying forces. That will be captured by the acoustic emitting sensors. And for many centuries, people have been keenly aware of the stress material that it emits noise. The creaking of weakened timbers or tin cry are familiar examples. Before a tree falls, it gives a creaking sound. Similarly, when you are applying any force, okay, this is according to you already in the first slides we mentioned that experience is required. You cannot apply whatever the force that you wish to apply. Oh, for what load you have designed, that much only you need to apply well within the serviceable limits, and you need to catch the acoustic emission waves, and you need to analyze it for the data. You have to go for the analysis and whether well within the limits or not, within the limits or not, you need to analyze it. If there is any crack, definitely it gives more acoustic emissions. Acoustic emissions on site we will test like this. I'll discuss with one or two case studies also, but not acoustic emissions, something different. How we have carried out non-destructive evaluation, not exactly the acoustic emission. So here this is a bridge, a suspender suspension type of bridges there. A load of a truck of known load will be moving over that, and the sensors will be attached where you are expecting the acoustic emissions or the bridge is weak, there you will attach, and the truck will be moving, and acoustic emissions will be collected with the help of sensors. When this AE hits inspection one, initial stress distributions will be like this. Naturally, we can find out in which span the bridge is weak, and we can suggest the remedial measures. Now this is Windsor probe test. This is just like a gun. These are something like bullets, and the Windsor probe uses a power activator driver. Simply we shoot using this type of embedders or bullets, whatever you call. Simply they are embedders. It embeds into the concrete. The exposed length of the probe is measure of the penetration resistance of the concrete. Simply you fire with the gun, you shot with the gun, or you shoot with the gun. So this will be embedded into the concrete. The length of penetration will give indirectly the strength of the concrete. The standard test procedure as described in ASTM C 803. This is Windsor probe test. To measure the compressive strength only. So if the in the concrete it has penetrated, this is compression zone. So how much is the length of penetration? Like that, we will, the exposed probe length is like this. The compressive strength will be on the y-axis. Like this, we will measure. Windsor probe test is very common, but generally we don't use here. It is very common in Western countries. So these are pull-out tests. The pull-out test consists of casting of specially shaped steel insert with an enlarged end into the fresh concrete. At the time of casting only, we will insert this. This is the head. This is the pull-out rod we will have, something like, and two reaction rings will be there, and we try to pull this out. To failure load, we calculate how much is the load that is required to pull the force. The steel inserted then pulled out from concrete, and the force required to pull out is measured using a dynamometer. This is very common test. Generally the cost is also very less, like 6,000 or 7,000. There are measuring equipments generally we get in the market. With the help of dynamometer, we will calculate the force which is required, to pull out this. The bearing ring is used to confine the failure well-defined shape. So here the rings will be there. So when you are dragging this, the surface will be like just like a failure surface we can calculate. As the steel inserted is pulled out, cone of concrete is also removed, thereby damaging the concrete surface, which must be repaired after the test. That means this is partially destructive test. The pull-out test will give, this is pull-out equipment. This is very, I mean, I can say it is affordable, 6 to 7,000 or hardly 10,000, depending upon the companies. So we will insert a ring will be there, and this is a dynamometer. It gives the the force, which is the value of the force which is required to pull out that. Here, this is a concrete surface. So here you are pulling out. These are the two. These are the two reaction rings, and you are applying the force. This is the failure shape we will generally get. Small test. This can be indirectly correlated to your compressive strength. So here the formula is given. Compressive strength, or this will be equal to 0.86, like this, 0.78 AF times force to the power of some exponent. Now coming to infrared thermography, these are some radiographic techniques. Remote sensing technique proved to be an effective, convenient, economical method of testing concrete. It can detect internal voids, delaminations, cracks in the concrete structures. These are some of the advantages. These are most effective tests. Advanced tests generally we do. The most important qualities are: it is accurate, repeatable, it needs no, it did not inconvenience the public, it is economical. Bridge decks, highways, pavements, these are, if you want to measure the internal laminas or delaminations or any cracks or any micro cracks, we use this infrared thermography. So these are thermograms. So this is the building. We focus the what you call infrared rays, and this is the thermograph of traditional building in the background and house in the foreground. So building in the background, and a house in the foreground. So there are here, this is a tree. Now this is the thermogram of a cat. This is the thermogram of a snake, aeroplane. So these red colors, green colors, different colors will give you the stress intensity at various parts. Thermal image of a space shuttle. Like this, this is very interesting one and very advanced testing methods. You can have a look. Infrared thermography. This is the building. This is the thermograph. This is the building. This is the thermogram. Naturally, where the colors are changing, the moisture will be there. Here, this is the building. This is the thermogram. Here, this indicates that moisture is there. Moisture ingress is there. This is the building, glazed building. So naturally, this is the thermogram. Okay, so here wherever you are seeing this colored, this is moisture. Naturally, I can say moisture ingress is there, it leads to corrosion. This is a bridge pier, hammerhead. They are using thermogram technique. So this is the tunnel. If there is any moisture ingress, what we see is moisture ingress. Okay, so this is a building you have seen. If you look the thermogram, here this is like this, what we see. So moisture behind the street rock. So like this, we will have thermogram thermal images. Concrete carbonation. The alkalinity of the concrete is more than around 12 to 13. Corrosion will not take place. Once the pH value decreases below 11, the corrosion will start, and one end of the steel rod will act as cathode, and as the corrosion passes on, it lead the other end will act as anode, and the volume of that rusting will increase, and it induces stress into the concrete. Thereby, concrete will fail. So eventual spalling will be there. That means it indicates the inside concrete has started rusting. So this is the basic thing. Atmospheric humidity will be 50 to 70. Once the spalling starts, the moisture ingress will be there, which will be penetrating inside by thereby increasing the corrosion of the steel, leads to further failure. So here corrosion I want to discuss. This is the spalling. Corrosion has taken place. This can be identified using thermographs. So if there is any water which has been logged there, we can have the uh, we can have in the thermograph. We can have a look in the thermograph that the moisture quantity is there. Thereby, basically, before leading to spalling, we can remove that and we can go for the new coating of plastic. Something we can suggest some measures. The pH value of the concrete is 12 to 13. Corrosion will not take place. The value comes down, pH value comes down to 10, and below that 11, and below that definitely this moisture ingress will start. Corrosion will be active, very active corrosion will be there. So till then corrosion will not be there. So chloride ion penetration is the main thing which is responsible for corrosion, and the moisture ingress from the atmosphere. Once a small hole starts, the moisture will ingress into that. Definitely it leads to corrosion. This is carbonation test, phenolphthalein indicator. Okay, I don't want to discuss more on this. Very simple test. I wish to go for some case studies. Before going to case studies, I want to deal only with the important things. This is cover meter to measure the cover. To control the carbonation or to control the corrosion, cover is very much important. Okay, you have constructed a building, you have purchased a building which is the age of the building is say 20 years. I want to measure the cover, whether the cover is correct or not. Then these are electromagnetic devices that detect the reinforcing steel. So what is the spacing? How much is the cover thickness? That can be plotted using these devices. The device produces a magnetic field and locates the reinforcing steel by measuring the distortion of magnetic field created by presence of steel. It basically uses the electromagnetic. It is an electromagnetic device, and magnetic field will be created. How it works, we will see. This is the column. He is using cover meter, and here this produces a magnetic field, and it gives the values readings. Thereby, directly the signal received increases with increasing bar size. Diameter of the bar is more and more. That means definitely the signal will hit that. Now, if the signal is uh, received increases, definitely I can say the diameter of the bar is this much. The cover meter can be calibrated to convert the signal into distance, which indicates the depth of cover. We need to calibrate, we need to analyze the data, and we can calculate this. Concrete imaging techniques, ground penetration radars, ground penetration radiographic testing, X-ray uses radioactive gamma radiations that we will see. So this is ground penetration radars. Now, how the reinforcement spacing is there, this is known as Scanlock cars. Similarly, we can also use to the this as ground penetration radar test. We can also use to the foundation depth, reinforced concrete and radar devices. This is Scanlock car. Radar device reception and transmission will be there. We can measure this is profometer. Generally sometimes we use for measuring the cover also. This is ground penetration radar. This is different, that is different. These are some of the structural health monitoring static tests. And here we use displacement transducers. So here how the displacements, the crack widths are increasing, that will be measured through this hysteresis voltage measurements. Here this is the actuator. To health monitoring, this is dynamic field test. Single axis piezoelectrical accelerometers will be attached to the buildings. So at various locations we can have a look. We will actuate the structure with the help of actuator, and we will catch the waves. Thereby we will analyze this, and if there is any variation or linear displacements, we can catch with the help of these signals. This is the actuator. With this actuator we will activate the building. Dynamic test, field dynamic test, that is. Some environment tests are also there. Meteorological departments which gives the wind speed. Anemometers only they use. They will give the wind speed during cyclones. We come at the end of we witness at the end of daily news that the wind speeds or the atmospheric pressures or the temperatures. But the meteorological department they use this integrated sensors to measure the temperature and relative humidity. These are some of the sensors. Just like rain gauges, they use this. So I did not explain this. This is concrete core strength. This is concrete core which has been obtained first floor like this. This is the direct sample. This is not the casted sample in the laboratory. So I'll discuss with the case study which I have. Loading test of buildings. Load test of building is popular by means of demonstrating a structure's capability when a simple analysis is not practical. So load test we will do. So I will explain this. Okay, this is the load test where I was associated. Okay, this is a bridge. This is the load 70R load. So here we have installed dial gauges. I think you follow my cursor. This cursor is this one is showing the this one what you call reflectometers. This is a bridge. This is the scaffolding that they have arranged. On the bridge, this is the load test we have done, and below the bridge, below this one, we have measured the deflections. The loading directly we cannot apply the load. Loading shall be done at 30%, 50, 70, 80, 90 till the total load will be there directly. If it is 70 tons loading directly, you cannot apply 70 tons. So we need to apply in the stage wise, and the width is also restricted. And you know 70R loading 3.6 meters, track length 0.85 meters, width of the track, and like that 1.8 meters. This one what we call the length of the track. So like that, in the same phase only, we need to apply the load, and it should be applied at the say total load you want to test is 100 tons. First, you have to apply 30 tons, then 50, then 70, 80, 90, 100. So maximum deflection permissibles are 40 L square by D, where L is the effective span. These are as per the code which we have seen for our span, which works out to be 5.33 for 10.76 bridge. The structure should have a recovery of not less than 75%. If you remove the load, it should recover 75% of the maximum deflection due to superimposed load. So bridge inspection we have done. So here also I have involved this. I want to concentrate a little bit more. It is a T-beam girder bridge constructed across the river Kattaleru Wag. Generally, it is a canal-like thing. River Kattaleru in the Khammam district. The problem was it was reported that the strength of the concrete is one of the piers could not achieve the achieved in testing of corresponding concrete cubes. Further core samples are collected, gave the different values also. This is a problem. Actually, I'll explain with the hip hop diagram. Okay, this Kattaleru Wag is there in Khammam district near Madhira. They constructed piers very long back, 10 to 15 years back. They constructed the piers. They want to go for the tech. They want to go for the tech stack to allow the traffic. But before constructing of the slab, because the piers are constructed 5 to 10 years back, they got doubt on one pier. It is not achieved the strength. They have taken the cube samples. The cube, their grade of concrete is say M20. The cube strength is giving only 10 or 15. So they got the doubt. They stopped the work. During this process, during the process of releasing of funds and for the deck slab, it was around 5 to 10 years. Then they contacted the NIT people for the assessment of strength, and I was involved in that. We have gone to the field and we have physically inspected what test is required for that. So rebound hammer test, ultrasonic, and core cut. These are the three tests we size cut together. So this is the pier. The pier number 7 they have got out. The diameter of the pier is 1.8 meters. Height of the pier is 3.35 meters. Then we have made the grids like this. So around the perimeter, the longitudinal wise, we have made the grid. The perimeter, this is the diameter, ID is the perimeter, so 5.65. So here, this is myself, this is my technical assistant. So here we are testing using rebound hammer in all the grids. In all the grids, we have tested taken the rebound hammer values. Then we have taken the ultrasonic pulse velocities. Here, this is my PhD guide, Professor Ram Seshu from NIT Warangal. I was associated with him. So the grid numbers here you are looking. Number 2, it is visible. Here, this is one more number we have marked. And from this point to this point, we have calculated the distance. This is the transmitter and this is the receiver. We have noted all the points in the various grids here. From one transmitter I kept here, the receiver will be moving around perimeter and along the lengthwise. So this is constant, the other one is moving. So we have calculated this rebound values. This is a core cutter. We have removed a core sample from this bridge, core extraction, and we have compiled the results. Cross section of the core we have taken. Height, we have height of the core. Actually, it should be 300, but when you are finishing it, we got 288, 295, 290. We got. This is a cross-sectional area. Average rebound value in that particular place. Ultrasonic pulse velocity value and the pulse velocity speed I have shown according to 13311 1992 part 1. We have calculated. We have compiled the pulse velocity speed average 4.61. Then I can say the concrete is good. Similarly, equivalent compressive strength using concrete rebound hammer also we got this one. Compressive strength using core cutter also we got this. So average rebound value we got this. We got the equivalent cube compressive strength we got. Even core values also we got. The rebound value this one. Ultrasonic pulse velocity, compressive strength this one. The variation is well within the 10 plus or minus 20%. As per the table, the mean strength values is 24. We got 23.3, whichever is greater. Naturally, we have taken since the mean compressive strength is 32.911. It is about 24. They used M20. So naturally, the concrete is safe. Then the fire was provided with the deck. Now it is the operational condition. You can have a look near Madhira. The bridge was completed and it was now it is open for traffic also. The case I am referring is that this is in 2012 or 2013, not exactly. I didn't remember. Maybe in 2012 we have done this. This is the value. This is the variation of compressive strength in the longitudinal direction and in the perimeter wise. We have taken the perimeter values also. This is a plot graph. This is a graph we have plotted. This is the practical case how we need to do. This is the report we have submitted. Okay, I'll discuss with one more case study. Okay, this is corporate tower in Jindal cement factory in Raigad, Chhattisgarh presently. This beam is steel building, a steel beam. It is a composite building. Their corporate tower, Jindal Steel Works, corporate tower in Raigad in Chhattisgarh. They asked us to estimate the deflection. They got the doubt. The steel beam is deflecting. So here you can have a look. This is the dial gauge we have installed. This span they have got the critical. This is one of the spans. In one of the spans they got the doubt. The deflections are crossing the limits. Then we asked them to arrange this type of scaffolding like thing to install the dial gauge, and above the roof we have loaded that also. I'll share the pic. This is the deflection in the slab we are measuring. This is the deflection in the beam we are measuring in the same span. This is the deflection in the beam. We attached a dial gauge, and above this you can have a look. Here the current pipe is leaking, the water ingress is there, moisture ingress is there. This is a 7-storied tower, corporate tower. The top, in one of the spans, they got the doubt. So they do not know how to go for the live load testing. They contacted us in KITS Warangal when I was working with the KITS. So we have decided, this is the live load testing we have adapted. Whatever you are looking here, above the top, okay, this is beam, no? Above the slab, this we have arranged the live load with the help of bricks. I asked them to bring their calculations. They designed for 7 kilonewton, okay, not 7, 5 kilonewton per meter square live load. In that particular span, so on both sides of beam, this is the beam, steel beam, columns are RCC, beams are steel. It is a composite building. Some columns are also steel. So it is a combination of steel and concrete. This is a steel beam on both sides of the spans. Both sides of the spans, I asked them to put the live load like this. And the live load we have calculated, and we have taken the weight of the individual brick, and we calculated how many bricks are required. We arranged in 5 rows, 5 or 6 exactly. I didn't remember. So this is the live load we have adapted there. Here technical assistant, here their supervisor, this is myself, and below that we are measuring. This is the scaffold system. Here we are measuring the deflection of the beam. During nights, the deflections are monitored around the clock. I mean, not 24 hours, at a regular intervals of 4 times we have taken the uh, 4 times at regular intervals of 6 hours we have taken the measurements, how the beam is deflecting, how the steel beam is deflecting. We observed that the deflections are more than the allowable limits. Then we suggested go for the bracing systems. We have advised that one. This is in the Jindal Steels and the Jindal Cement Factory in Chhattisgarh. This is the rebound hammer testing where the top floor, the Chhattisgarh. So this is a practical case, and we are moving over the scaffolding, and this is the steel beam, and even the slab deflections also we are recording it during the night. The regular intervals of 6 hours, as I mentioned. So in a day, we used to take the recordings. We used to record the data once in 6 hours, 4 times a day for continuous 4 days. We have monitored. We have removed the loading, and then also we monitored the recovery of deflections. Recovery of deflections are not well within the limit, so we suggested that to go for bracing. Additional steel column should be provided at shown places. So this is practical cases how we do this non-destructive evaluation. Now this is one of the bridges in on Kinnerasani Vagu, Pandangapuram, Palancha Mandal. Here also we have gone for the testing of load testing. So here we are taking the rebound hammer test of the spans, and we have measured the deflections, compressive strength. The grade of concrete is M25, the mean strength of the group is 28. Whichever is greater, the compressive greater, the concrete conforms to M25. Like this, we will give this one. Ultrasonic pulse velocity we have taken, and if it is more than, it is in between 3 to 3.5, concrete is of medium grade. That's what I told you. The ultrasonic pulse velocity is only qualitative test, not the quantitative. Thank you for your kind attention. Hello.
Sir.
Gulam
Any
Sandani?
questions? Yes, sir. Thank you for your time, sir. Any questions from the participants?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Your voice is audible, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
If
yes,
there are any queries, please inform. And very much again, once again, I wish to place my sincere thanks on record to the management of Jayamukhi Institute of Technology and Professor Loknath Rao Garu and Gulam Sandani and the other faculty members and Professor Rangaya Garu and my ex-colleague. I hope Professor Jaydev Gnani is also there with you. Hello.
yes, sir. Sir, I have two questions, sir, with me.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
we use this type of sensors in heavy hydraulic structures like dams and all those things?
Definitely. The sensor should be embedded into the concrete.
Okay, sir.
But
And
the
second
effect
one
of
is,
water, the effect of water pressure and other things should be taken into consideration.
and second one is due to this COVID-19, the real estate sector is badly hurt, sir. Due to less number of laborers, as a civil engineer, what we should do to minimize this loss? One of the participants, he's from industry, he tests my question, sir. What we
No,
should do to minimize these losses?
okay. If you are aware of the things that the webinar was in the month of May, I hope in the starting of May or ending of April, National Technical Teachers Research Institute, Chennai, they conducted one seminar on automation of construction industry. Now, in future, the labor will be minimized and only automation process will be there. The estimates, everything will be through automation only. We need to move towards slightly towards the automation process only. There is no other go. We have to go only with the automation process, and it has started, and it has motivated, and it has it is accelerating nowadays in the metro cities. Slowly it will expand to even it will ingress into the urban areas also. The future days to come, mainly automation, and sometimes he expressed that robots will be there to what you say to work in site places, and mostly precast will be there to minimize the labor.
Okay. I'm requesting to Mr. Sai Charan, please unmute all the participants. If they have questions, they can ask. If anyone has any queries, please you can ask. Mr. Saijaran, are you there?
Hello, Kada sir.
Hello. Hello.
Sir. Sir, Dakshinamurthy sir. Good
Yeah.
afternoon, sir. Sir, I'm
Good
Joy,
afternoon.
sir.
Yeah.
Sir, my doubt is regarding the repairing methods, sir. There are now you have detailedly explained about what are the tests that we have to conduct and the detailed entity test you have explained, sir. So, what
Yeah.
can be the repairing methods? We wanted to know in detail, sir. If possible, can
Definitely.
you give us any another session regarding the repairing methods, sir? That means people are not
Definitely.
having the clarity for what repairing methods that should be chosen for particular crack or else the damage. Depending upon the damage only, we have to choose the repairing method, no sir.
Yeah.
So, which is most probably or else appropriate to choose methods? We have to. We wanted to know, sir.
Definitely.
Can you take that another session, sir?
Right now.
No, sir. In future, from our college
Def-
only, we will ask you. We will approach you, sir.
Definitely.
That's it.
Definitely. The only thing is generally we use shotcrete, gunating,
Yeah.
or epoxy polymers. There is a
Yes, sir.
revolution in the chemicals, in the repair chemicals.
Yes, sir.
There is a revolution in the chemical repair chemicals. Epoxy polymers, monomers, very impressive chemicals are there, which can be used for repairs. Different strategies are there. What you say, fiber reinforced repairs are there. So different methods are there. We can have a session on that. That is repairs and retrofitting of structures. This is NDT, structural health monitoring. Definitely, I am always ready. So whenever you give a call from your college side, definitely I am always ready to share my opinion and the little knowledge on the repairs and rehabilitation. There are different methods. Stitching is one method. What we call bonding, epoxy bonding is one method. Masonry, for masonry repairs, we will go for different methods like what we call banding is one method. And reinforcing masonry is there. Different methods are there. So we need to select the appropriate method depending upon the situation. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, if possible, provide your mail ID and contact details in chat box, no, sir, so that we can contact you personally if we have any doubt in a research related also.
Definitely, Amma, definitely. But my number is with Ghulam Sandani.
Okay,
Here,
sir.
chat box, I don't know. Sharing screen is there.
Okay, sir. Fine, sir.
Ma'am.
We will contact Kader, sir.
I'm not finding any chat box here in the computer.
Oh, okay,
However,
sir. We will
definitely
take
my
details from Kader, sir.
Lady in the contact number, sir. I will give to participants, sir. No problem.
I should give my mail ID also.
Yes.
So if possible, I locate this chat box. If possible today, I'll give, but not finding.
Sir, can you share the PPT, sir?
PPT, okay, I'll share it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Doubts? Still any more doubts?
No, from me, nothing, sir. Thank you so much. Okay.
Session is clear, no?
Yes, sir. Kader, sir?
Yes.
Kader,
Okay.
sir. If no
Yes, sir.
participants having any doubts, we can close the session, sir.
Behalf of Department of Civil Engineering, JMUK Institute of Technological Sciences, I am thanking you, sir, for your valuable time giving on this particular and hot topic. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope it is Gulam Chandani or Gulam Khadar.
Gulam Khader, sir. Yes. Gulam Khader, yes.
Thank you for your invitation, and I'm very much privileged to be a speaker for your institute. And Professor
And,
Loknath Rao, your principal, we were colleagues in KIDS, and I'm very happy to share
and
my views
surely
on
we
this
arrange
subject.
another session, sir. And surely we
Definitely,
arrange another session regarding ma'am tell that repair techniques and all those things. I will talk with our principal and arrange another session in
no issue.
shortly, sir.
No issue. I'm dealing right now for MTech. I'm dealing only with repairs and rehabilitation. So there you can
Okay.
have many more slides.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I close the section?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.